Okay, thanks. Ken, you said it was 6 years between the time that you wrote that awesome song and you got a record deal?
Yeah.
And what was it like having people tell you, I'm sure, that it was awesome and you should do something with it?
Well, I think one of the, what Josh was just talking about, is central to be able to go back and look at what you can control and what you can't control. For us, whether it was that song or the body of work, for us it was about writing songs that we were proud of. It was about putting on powerful live shows that were unique every time, that people would say that was time well spent, money well spent. It was making sure that we were taking care of the people that were coming out, whether there was 2 people there or 2,000 people there. They get the same show, and we would come out. This is before downloads when we first got started, and we would literally go on campuses in college town. We started doing concentric circles out of Gainesville. We got a little buzz here, and we'd go to Jacksonville and Tallahassee and Orlando until we build that kind of up. And we'd go onto these campuses, and we would literally hand out CDs. And we'd go to the sorority houses, and we'd walk in, and we'd do a little a cappella thing and say, hey, we're going to put 10 of you guys on the guest list. Anything we could do to create relationships. And we'd get people's numbers, and we'd come back in town. We'd call people, hey, we're back in town. And it was just about trying to turn 2 people into 4 people, 4 people into 8 people, and having real relationships with them. It wasn't about a song. It was about an experience. It was about us being proud of what we were doing every day. I think there's a serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that was very important because there's a lot of stuff that people try to worry about or spend a lot of wasted energy on that's just out of their control. For us, it was about believing in what we were doing, having a good time, having inspired action. That kind of goes back to, do you love what you do? That doesn't mean it's not hard. That doesn't mean we didn't sleep on a lot of floors. I was just telling somebody I just slept in the airport floor 2 nights ago in Jackson, Mississippi. It's part of the deal. But there's inspired action. And when it's inspired action, there's an energy that's really hard to stop. You get in that flow. And then perseverance isn't drudgery. It's you're doing what you love.
Thanks. Kristen, have you ever had any financial struggles?
You're asking all the money questions here. Okay, so he's referring to this one time when I made a mistake on payroll and I overpaid my employees by $40,000. And it was whoops. Yeah, they were lucky. So it was separated into 27 different bank accounts. And I got a call in the middle of the night from an employee that said, hey, boss, did I get a raise? And I'm thinking, no, why? Well, I got $5,000 in my bank account, and I thought I was only supposed to get $500. I'm like, oh, my goodness. So I log on the system, and I see $40,000 just, in all these different bank accounts. Anyway, it took 3 days to resolve. And, of course, I was freaking out. I mean, that was everything just gone. And the point here, though, is that every single penny was returned to my bank account. Not one of my employees spent any of that money. And so it just kind of showed me that even though it was a huge obstacle and terrible feeling and experience, it showed me that I hired the right people. And as an entrepreneur, one thing I've learned is to see every challenge as an opportunity to learn something, that there's always a silver lining, even though it could be the hardest thing in the world. So now looking back, I'm just thankful that I hired the right people because, they didn't spend any of that money.
Great. And how old were you at the time?
I was 21.
21. And, the underlying thing that I always hear is that the check for $40,000 cleared.
Thanks to that loan from my business plan.
But you've now separated your payroll account from your...
Yes, separate your payroll account from your operating account.
And so, Don, hearing a story like that, as a banker, I'm sure this is a problem that you would love to help someone solve. Would love to have a 21-year-old that has problems like this. But it starts with getting the capital to start your business. If someone comes to you, what kinds of things are you looking for?
I'm looking to see that they've already taken the first step. If somebody comes and they say, Don, I've got this idea, it's great, and they've done nothing except come up with an idea, that scares me to death. But if they've taken a couple first steps and they can show me some kind of income stream, they're producing some product, they're selling some service, they've got something going on, that helps a lot. Then I can take that little bit of information and I can say, okay, if they could do that, then is it possible they can leverage that and do something bigger? And that something bigger is what would repay the loan. Does that help?
That's great. Yeah, and so something bigger may be hiring employees. So let's ask Josh or Abi, what was it like to become an employer?
I think check. Becoming an employer was an interesting process. I think I kind of fumbled through it for the first few employees. We were very sloppy about everything from the interview process to the onboarding process. Every now and then we would get a call from a number we didn't recognize, and it was somebody who had shown up at the office for an interview. Nobody was there. We were sleeping in late, whatever. We'd been up all night the night before. But eventually, once we kind of got into the groove of it, I think every company is different in terms of its culture, its corporate culture. So what worked well for GrooveShark is having a very flat, very informal, very kind of laid-back atmosphere. We're trying to be somewhat Google-esque. We like what Google and Facebook and all those guys out in Silicon Valley are doing. So we've always had a feeling of some sort of, equality between everybody. So even when we were bringing on employees back then, we weren't really doing some kind of control and command situation. So bringing on employees was sort of like bringing people onto a cause. It didn't really feel like we were trying to get somebody to come in for a certain paycheck, especially because back then we were all making exactly zero. So the only reason why people were coming on in early GrooveShark was because they were believing the same mission that we were. So we were bringing on other people as equals, as founding team members. Also back then, because we weren't paying anybody, everybody was getting paid in equity. So all of the full-time employees of GrooveShark, and this is still true today, are part owners in the company. So for us, hiring employees was very much about finding people who had a shared common vision. And it was a lot more about finding people with the right personality than with the right skill set. We very quickly came to see that you could teach somebody how to code. If I'm looking to hire a new developer, you might know Java, you could learn C++. You could always pick up a new language or something like that. But you can't go from not being that great of a person overall to all of a sudden being a great person. So all the time we would hire people who were just great. They were energetic, they were fun, they were passionate, but they didn't really have any skills that we can kind of list on a piece of paper. And then we would teach them those skills, or even they would teach themselves those skills. And a lot of those people are still working at GrooveShark today. And whenever we go in the opposite direction and we find somebody who on paper looks fantastic, they've got a well laid out resume, but their personality doesn't click, none of those people end up working out. So we've learned a lot of lessons over time. But hiring employees is fun.
All right.